फोन नंबर पढ़। हाँ बेटे, इंदौर वहां से कर इंदौर।
And as requested, could everyone please go on mute?
Sorry. All right, I think I'm going to start now. Are we all good to go?
Yes and no, we can go ahead and start.
All right, so I'm just going to stop the video. And are you all able to see the presentation? Shilpa, can you just respond on behalf of everyone?
Yes, no, I can see it.
All right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to day one of this 4-day online workshop on early childhood education and discussing about the impact of present times of COVID-19 outbreak, especially about young children. And firstly, I really hope that all of you are staying safe and taking care of everyone else around you. We all know that these are testing times, and I hope everyone is staying strong and healthy, physically and mentally both. So just to give a brief introduction about myself, I am Sanno Srivastava, and I work with the Center for Early Childhood Education and Development. Can I request everyone to go on mute, please? And sorry, the center is in Ambedkar University, New Delhi, and we mainly do work around policy, research and practice in early childhood education area. When I say practice, we provide technical assistance to the state government in providing quality. Also, I can speak Hindi, English, and Marathi. So if you want me to switch to other languages, that's also fine. Or if you just want this session to be completely in English, just let me know. All right. Okay, so what are we going to expect today in this session is that we are going to discuss mainly about young children, what children of 3 to 8 years can do? How can we understand them as individuals? How can we support them better? Especially during these COVID-19 times, what can we as parents, as teachers do to support their holistic development? Understanding why early years are important and what do we mean by early stimulation? How are we assessing their learning in early years? How are we supporting their learning in early years? And mainly understanding what are the different skill development domains in early childhood. All right. Okay, so the entire session about early child development lies in this picture. And this is one of my favorite picture when I usually talk about babies. You can see here a child is trying to make sense of everything around him, trying to make an understanding of what his father looks like, what his mother's like sitting next to him feels like what is the texture of the face of the father, what is the father saying, whatever I'm able to hear it, making sense of the sound, making sense of the environment around him. So basically, when we talk about early stimulation, it mainly means making sense of the world around us. So early stimulation is no scientific term. It's mainly about making sense of what is happening around it and trying to survive yourself and then taking care of everyone else. When we talk about the context of ECE, there are 4 important numbers that we all need to be very considerate about and understand what they really stand for. Can somebody tell me in the chat box what this 700 would mean in the context of ECE? I can't see the chat box, 1 second.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, I got, ma'am. 700 something. Yeah, okay, ma'am.
So I was asking, can somebody write on the chat box what this 700 would mean in the context of early childhood education? And this is the last request to tell all the participants to please mute their mic. All right, I'll just, okay, somebody's writing 700 hours, interesting. So these are basically 700 neural connections that are formed every second when a child is interacting with his or her caregiver and around his experiences. So there are 700 neural connections that are formed every second. So that's an important number when we are talking about early years. Let's get ready for the second number. Can somebody guess what this 18 would mean in the context of ECE? I would want you all to give it a try. Okay, somebody said 18 months, very close. When the child isn't engaged, interesting. 18 days. Okay, one more response. 18 seconds. All right, so this 18 mainly represents 18 months of size of vocabulary. So there'll be a difference in the size of vocabulary that can emerge as early as 18 months based on level of interaction with caregivers. So it's very important to start having interaction with babies and young children right from early years, and you would start seeing the difference in their vocabulary as early as 18 months. So that's the mainly the number about. Third, Can you all see my presentation?
Yes, Tanu, I can see your presentation.
Okay, yeah, somehow got lost. I'm not able to move to the next slide. I'm so sorry, 1 second. All right, yeah. So, can somebody guess what 90 would mean? Yeah, I will repeat what 18 months is. First, let's just go back to the 90. I'll talk about these two things altogether. Okay. 90 days and 90 weeks of what? Can you all please elaborate? That will help. 90 seconds of attention span. Okay. Okay, one more response. Okay, so there are around 90 to 100% chances of development delay that can happen if a child is experiencing risk factor. If there is a child having abuses, is facing stress, there is around 90 to 100% chances of developmental delay in that child. So that's why the number 90 is very important in the context of ECE. Okay. Going back to 18 months, I was saying that there could be a difference in the size of vocabulary that can emerge as early as 18 months. So it's very important to start interacting with a child as early, because from 18 months onwards, you could start seeing the difference in their vocabulary size, the difference in the way they talk. So that's why 18 months is a very important number. And again, going back to 90, there will be a chances of 90 to 100% delay that can happen if a child is experiencing the risk factor. All right, last number. Come on, everyone. What would 10 mean in the context of ECE? Also, I really appreciate people trying, and 10 days, interesting. Ten-minute eye contact, okay. Interesting, 10 seconds of touch. Okay, last response. Can learn 10 languages. Very nice. All right, so 10 in the context of early years would mean that long-term rigorous study, and especially World Bank, has reported that for every 10 rupee that you invest in early childhood program, you would get a return of 25 to 30 rupees. So when we talk about economics, when we talk about money, that's when also early childhood education is quite important to get invested on. So for every 10 rupee, you would get a return of 25 to 30 rupees. So that's why it's very important to invest as early as possible in young children. Okay, so 4 important numbers: 700, 90, 18, and 10 is something that we all should remember by. We all should be reading more about these and talk more about these numbers, especially when you're working with young children. All right, moving ahead. When I spoke about 700 neural connections, how these connections are formed when a child is interacting, let's take a look at a quick video here. So when a child is interacting with the caregiver, this is how an information gets passed through electric signal, and connections are formed. And from 8 months to 2 years of age, there is a rapid growth of these neural connections. And by the time a child is 3 years old, the brain has formed around 1,000 trillion connections between the neurons. And that's how the connections look like. And it's very important to give as many experiences, varied experiences, and rich experiences to make stronger connection. So it's very aptly said, you are what your synapses are. And we cannot stress enough that how first 1,000 days of life are most dynamic and most important phase of brain development, because it has increase in brain size and they are rapid mapping of overall brain size. All right. Let me know if you also want me to go slow. There will be times when I'll be going really fast. So overall, just summarizing what we saw in the video, you could see that there was a research done by the Center on the Developing Child by Harvard University, which mainly talks about how the brain ability to change in response to experiences would sort of decrease. If you see the blue line, it will decrease as the age grows. And similarly, the amount of effort that change would require would increase with age. So that's why early years are very important. Early child development is very important because the brain's ability to change would be faster during early years and it will gradually decrease with time. I'm just pausing for everyone to look at this graph and sort of absorb and understand. Write down your thoughts. Okay, somebody has mentioned, didn't understand, please repeat. Do you want me to repeat the graph? Like talk about the graph again? Could you please put it in the chat box? All right, okay. So when you look at this graph, this was a study done by Center on the Developing Child by Harvard University. And you can see there are two lines. If you focus on the blue line, you will see how a brain can change faster with the early years, and then gradually its ability would decrease with time. So you can actually focus on your age and then see where, how the ability of your brain is and how it can actually change in response to the experiences and interaction with people. And if it's decreasing with time, then the amount of effort to make that change would also increase. And you can see in the early years here, there is a very less amount of effort that would require. And then it will gradually increase with time. Right. The ability to adapt would decrease over time. You would have more effort. You would need to put in more effort. You need to put in more hard work to bring in change. It's not, I'm not saying it's impossible, but then it will require a lot more effort and hard work with time. All right. Okay, moving on. So these are two pictures of a brain talking mainly about effect of stress on hormones. I'm sorry, you won't be able to read what's written. I will just explain. There's a sample of two brain. One is a healthy brain and the other is an abused brain. And you could see a young child would have the ability to deal with stressful situation, but for only short periods of time. And it's very important to be supported by caregivers. A nurturing relationship and a stable caregiver can act as a buffer and would help the baby to deal with difficult circumstances. So you could see that there is a clear indication of the brain architecture of children who were neglected and abused. And that's why we cannot stress enough that caregivers, be it teachers, be it parents, they play an important role in regulating stress hormone production during the early years of life. Again, I'm just making you all to just look at this picture again, try and make some sense of it. This is abuse here. I'm again repeating, sensitive and responsive caregiving from parents and a teacher They can serve as a powerful buffer against stress hormone exposure. So if you have a child who is experiencing risk factor, giving him enough good experiences, powerful experiences, helping him in making or her making powerful connections would really help him come out of that stress. All right, moving ahead. So what can parents and caregivers need to provide priority to during COVID-19? We cannot can you all hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. Was there any slide that was missed because I've got muted?
So the moment you started about parents, the role of parents, you went on mute, but
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, so talking about the important role of caregivers, especially during these times, what parents and caregivers need to give priority to is to ensure, I mean, of course, we all know that we cannot avoid stress. We are also coping with this situation, but we need to provide as much care and comfort and give positive interaction time with children. We are also dealing with our own stress. But stimulating and caring adult child interaction would really help child to also sort of come out of that stress. And children need interactive and reliable adults. They need to be kept updated on the information. Do talk about the tough time, to talk about COVID, and do talk about why people are wearing masks, why is it important to maintain hygiene. But also see that they are also encouraged to speak out and share their anxiety, share their fear, see what makes them angry these days, try and have an understanding of what makes them happy, spend a lot of time with them. They would need a lot of love and care and not just, custodial protection. Giving children priority at home is also very important during these times, as they would need space, they would want to go back to their comfort level. Giving them opportunity to share and listen to others, and playing. I mean, of course, there is no physical space available for play, but playing would really help inside as therapy with materials and dolls for dramatic play, and engaging them in activities for overall development would really help. Not just helping on their academic and cognitive skills, but also equally important should be given to the social emotional needs of children, and helping them understand and express their emotions, and also discussing what is right and wrong around why. I mean, it's very important to maintain hygiene. Why is it right during this time? How are we developing social skills? So these are the things that for now, it's very important for caregivers and parents to take care. All right, moving ahead.
One second, ma'am. Let me read this paragraph.
All right. Yeah, I'm just giving you all some time.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just moving on now.
Yeah, go ahead, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So now we will move on to understand what 3 to 6 year old children can do, understanding and knowing them, what are the different policies which are available, what are the different programs available in India, how can we go back to some learning materials which are there in government's websites, and how can we develop social skills. So these are the things that for now, it's very important for caregivers and parents to take care. All right, moving ahead. So now we will move on to understand what 3 to 6 year old children can do, understanding and knowing them, what are the different programs available in India, how can we go back to some learning materials which are there in government's websites, who have made those materials, how can we benefit from them? This is mainly, I'm going to talk about those things. Since we all are working with babies and young children, I would really recommend you all to go to Ministry of Women and Child Development website, and please go through the National Early Childhood Care and Education Curriculum Framework that came in 2013, and this was developed by UNICEF, developed by Ambedkar University with the help of Ministry of Women and Child Development. Please go through it. It has everything that you would want to understand about early years, what they can do, how can we provide them better support, what if there are any policies available, what are those policies, are we investing enough? Every question would be answered in the curriculum framework. Please go through it, download it, read it in your spare time. And also there are different activity books developed for children right from 3 years to 6 years. It's uploaded in the Ministry of Women and Child Development website, again developed by Ambedkar University, which would give you an idea of what are the activities that we could do in school, at home with young children, how can they benefit. There is also a scope for everyone to put in their observations and suggestions on these activity books. Every state has been using these activity books, contextualizing them according to their own needs. I mainly work with Rajasthan, with UNICEF, and we recently sort of revised these activity books in the context of Rajasthan. So please take a look at these activity books and see if it's helping in your own state, with your own school, in your own setting, and try and make some use of it. Also, third very important thing that has recently been developed is the early learning developmental standards. I would be sharing these as resources to Shilpa very soon. And it mainly talks about different learning standards right from 3 years to 6 years, 8 years actually, because that's where the foundational stage is. And you should also read the 2019 draft policy on education. And firstly, 2 chapters which are dedicated on early childhood education and foundational literacy and numeracy. That was a beautiful document of like 484 pages long. And it was a good decision by the government to extend 3 to 6 years into RTE, and it was quite welcomed as a recommendation. Please read 2019 draft education policy. Please have a look at the National Early Childhood Care and Education Curriculum Framework 2013. All right, so these are the important documents which would just answer all your questions. Okay, for you all, if you, in case you want to write down these documents' name, I'm just giving you all another minute. All right, moving on. In the National Early Childhood Care and Education Curriculum Framework, you would find a section which mainly talks about what is the approximate age of children, what they can do, and what they exactly need, what caregivers can provide. So this is a very important section in that curriculum framework, and we could always go back to it and make adjustments to our plans, sorry, make adjustments to our activities based on what is there in the document. So I'm just sort of reading out a couple of activities, a couple of things that children can do and what we can do as caregivers. So when we talk about the first column, here it says a child of 3 to 5 years would enjoy learning new skills, and that they usually do. What are the things that we could do? We could provide them more opportunities to develop fine motor skills. And if a child is learning language rapidly, which they would do, we need to provide them with hands-on exploration for learning through action and having a lot of opportunities for them to interact with us. So there are many things that you can see what they usually do in their age and what are the things that we could help to support them better. The second column would talk about 5 to 6 years, which also stays valid for older children, 7 to 8 as well. If they have a longer attention span, what we could do, we could have more adult guided versus free play activities and more of large group activities and focus. This is actually there in the document. You could just download that and then have a look at it. Yeah, you could actually just type Ministry of Women and Child Development and go to ICDS. You would find all these documents which are there. These are good documents, well researched, and are really helpful. And most of the states are using those documents in the context of their own state EC. So, yeah. I'm just again giving all a minute to look at the column. Also, how it's very important to focus more on the pre-reading and pre-writing skills and making them ready to read and write instead of usually making them write. So please focus on reading readiness, which is applicable for 5 to 6 years. How are we making them match picture and sound? How are we mainly focusing on their phonics? How are we making them ready to write by having more activities on eye-hand coordination? Also very important to instill an interest to write and having more focus on developing skills in pre-number and number concepts. So pre-math skills, again, is very important. All right, moving on. When we talk about holistic development, there are 5 major skill development areas, and a young child's growth is better understood in these development areas. Of course, there are more, but to broadly categorize and into important skill development areas, these are the 5 major. And they mainly being physical well-being, health and motor development, cognitive development, which talks about the environmental awareness, development of scientific temper, developing mathematical thinking and reasoning, personal, social and emotional development, language, communication and literacy development, and of course, creative and aesthetic development. One very important thing to notice is creative development is very different from cognitive development. Usually people do get confused between these two and think that mainly about making them understand colors, making them paint and drawing would be similar to cognitive, but these are two separate. But of course they are all interrelated. Of course one domain would sort of influence the other domains also, but as teachers and as caregivers we need to understand the difference and importance of both these development and not get confused and mix them both. Just giving all another minute to look at these developmental domains so that we can go back to them in detail. All right, moving on. Like I said, development and learning, it takes place in all domains, and one domain would eventually influence the other domain as well. So they are all interrelated. We cannot see them as separate areas and separate domains. They are all interrelated, and you can actually do an activity and sort of see other skill areas being taken care of as well. So it's very important to not just focus on one skill development and then think about the activities. take an activity and then sort of see what are the other skill development areas that are being taken care of. So that's these are two different things, and we need to really focus on first doing the activity and then the skill development, instead of talking about the skill and then making activities based on that. I will be talking about different skill development areas, including cognitive. Yeah. Also, another request, if you have questions, we will be taking it towards the end of the session. And if you have, I will be happy to answer all the questions, but we can always get them parked and then you can reserve these questions in the second session that I'll be taking on. So please be patient with your questions. Just put it in the chat box. I'll be reading all your questions and be happy to answer everything. All right, so talking about different activities as per different skills. So when we talk about cognitive skills, cognitive would mainly mean thinking skills. So just making a child to think more, and then just in simpler terms, it would mean to focus more on pre-math and other important skills. So what are those skills and what are the major activities that we could do? Matching, naming, labeling these whatever is there in the surroundings, classifying things, sorting things by color, shape, and size, sequencing them in order, seriating them, solving puzzles, solving riddles, and having some constructional games, which is making them think, such as block play would mainly come under cognitive skills. Again, these activities could also have other skill development areas, but the dominant skill would be cognitive. Okay, and what really happens in cognitive skill is there is development of 5 senses. We would have a child having ability to memorize things and observe things, would start thinking sequentially, would start to identify and match shapes, would understand the concept of less or more, and then would eventually categorize different things using 5 senses, memorizing 6 things at a time, would be able to arrange any object, would be able to think logically, would be able to solve a problem. For example, if it's raining outside and I need to go to school, what are the things that I should be taking with myself? Should I take an umbrella? Should I, wear a raincoat? Those are also very small things to be able to child to think and be able to solve a problem. Okay, not just having a maze or getting an activity on paper, but getting them to interact more and making them make simple choices would also sort of build in their problem solving skills. Counting and matching up to 5 would also happen when we are talking about cognitive skills. And being able to narrate a story, being able to narrate a series of events backwards would also happen. Okay, just giving on another minute to look at what are the major things that can happen under cognitive skills. What are the activities, major activities that we can do when we are talking about developing cognitive skills. Again, cognitive means to make a child to think, thinking skills. All right, moving on to the next skill. Another very important skill that people should be taking care of, and you cannot always do that on worksheets and on activities sheets, is a social emotional skill development. There are the activities that we could do is we could do a lot of storytelling, conversations, making use of talking as a resource for developing social emotion is very important. Through rhymes, poems, and songs, through a lot of music and dance opportunities being given. Pretend play and dramatic play plays a very important role in developing social emotional skill in a child, and making them participate in daily chores and routines, making them participate in group and team games, helping them, encouraging a child to make friends, sharing her things, are the most major activities that we could do in social emotional development. What happens? A child is able to know his or her name and is able to perform in group, is able to identify his or her feelings, would enjoy coming to the school, would interact with other children. She would greet teachers. She would interact with a lot of family members. She would also know her full name, her age, her gender. She would perform with some help from teachers in front of a group telling. She would say a story. She would participate in schools and Anganwadi activities by observing people, by seeing, okay, my Anganwadi worker or my teacher is doing something. She likes to take things, put notebooks in order. I would also do the same. I would also keep my classroom clean. I would keep my desk clean. This is how she comes. This is how she greets everyone. So these are the things that she would notice, and she would try and observe and copy. She would share toys and take turns when reminded. And she would know his or her parents' name and the area they live in. So if you see, there are 3 columns. The third column would mainly talk about older children, and these are the things that child would be able to do. And the first column would be right from 3 years, what a child would be able to do when we are talking about social emotional development. Okay, so moving on to knowing his or her name to helping the teacher in the third column, the last statement. Okay, so these are all in progression. These are the things that a child does in progression. Again, going back to the national curriculum framework, which is there, you would see that it's already written. It's written what is the progression of a child in which a child does things for every skill development domains. Okay, again, pausing here and making you all to just see the column and then try and make some sense of it. All right, moving on. Next, we have the language development.
జాయిన్ మీటింగ్ ఆప్షన్స్ ఉన్నాయి కదా ఆప్షన్స్ ఒత్తకు
All right, talking about language development, there are some major activities that we could do. We could do a lot of storytelling. If you're doing it in your class, very good. Please do some more, and making them talk a lot and have a lot of conversations, doing a lot of songs with them, asking them how their day went, asking them what are the things that they did in their house, and what are the, so making them usually talk a lot is what we could do to promote language development. Again, what are the things a child can do? She could start following instructions right at age 3, and she would demonstrate different body parts. She could express in words and demeanors. She'll be able to describe a picture. She'll be able to match the picture with the spoken words. She could also do a lot of sounds and rhyme rhythms and identify the first sound of the word. She could imitate reading and writing. Again, this is very different from making them write with pencil. When I say imitate, is when a child is drawing, a teacher can ask what a child is drawing, and then if she says, if I'm drawing maybe a sky and she's making a cloud pink, so teacher could write sky in front of her, and she could see that, okay, this is how a sky is written. And once the teacher has written sky, the child would be able to imitate what the teacher wrote and should be able to, sort of observe and copy what the teacher wrote. So that would instill of interest to write for the child instead of making them just write, okay, now we'll just write sky. So these are the two different approaches that we could do. Instead of just making them write sky, we could build an interest so that they would eventually themselves want to write how a sky looks. Making a child to choose his or her favorite book and asking them why you chose this favorite book so that they would talk more and then tell you why she chose this, what are the characters that she likes, what are the pictures that she likes, if she likes it to be small or long, if she likes the pages, if she likes to take it home and then read it out to your parents. So asking them a lot of questions about his or her favorite book would also be a very good activity. And encouraging them to say small and simple stories with the help of a teacher. So initially you could start helping them, but eventually just make them complete the story on their own. You could just begin a story, or you could just share your experience, what you saw or what you did today. And then if you know a story, we just create a story together and make the child add into more in the story. So again, saying simple and small and simple stories with the help of a teacher. A child is also able to understand many words when they become older, when they attain 5 to 6 years, and they can start recognizing words and stories. A child can also be able to explain his or her dislikes. What are they not liking? If they don't like a particular color, they would just be able to tell you. Like if I'm painting something and I don't want an orange color, a child should be able to tell you, okay, I want this color, and you could eventually then ask why and why not the other color. So explaining his or her dislike is again something that a child be able to do. Able to describe a subject or activities in a picture. This is again a very important activity, picture description. And what we could do as teachers, usually what we encourage the Anganwadi workers is to cut a lot of pictures from the newspapers, because those are real and relevant pictures, and make a picture book out of it. The child could just see all the pictures and would be able to describe what's happening in the picture. And, that will bring in more scope for them to talk. So a picture book made out of newspapers, made out of magazines, which are real and relevant for them, is highly recommended. Please do that to promote language development. And a child is also able to identify first and last sound when we talk about language development. Yes, we will be talking about special needs children and how we can promote language development. So it does not have to be vocally, and based on the disability the child is having, we can talk about different activities, and you don't have to make any extra effort. Like you first need to just make it more inclusive. Whatever activity that you're doing, just think about all children in your classroom, and you can make your activities more inclusive for them as well. Okay, again, pausing it for some time so that you all can just see the column for language development. Also, when we are speaking of language, it's very important to focus on multilingualism right from early years. And any discrimination against their linguistic identity, community, home culture would eventually affect their self-esteem and identify, their identity formation process. So it's very important to be considerate and take care of any language and any background that they come from. And try and also understand and learn their language, try and bringing small terms that they know based on their language. That would really help and make them feel included in the classroom and center. So culturally and linguistically sensitive teaching should be examined. Okay, moving on. Okay. Talking about physical skill development, some of the major activities that we could do is making them run a lot. If we do not have a physical space, we could make them jump in the space that they are in. Making them a lot of activity which includes pushing and pulling, sliding. And throwing and catching. So if you don't have a ball, and if you have a child who needs a lot of care in terms of physical skill development, you could make a bag out of and put rice in it, make a small rice bag, and eventually make a child practice throwing and catching using that rice bag. And then you can move on in handing balls to them. So these are the things also you could do. Balancing, hopping, jumping, cycling, giving them to paint and picking up things, making a knot, using clay to squeeze and roll. Those are the things that we could do. For a young child, a child would be able to walk, jump and run, and would be able to balance his or her body, and would be able to walk in line, would be able to throw a ball, be able to engage in free play, and should be able to tear paper. And eventually, when a child has started learning to walk, jump and run, you could give them opportunities to walk on bricks, you could give them opportunities to walk on wood, have small hurdles and make them jump over the hurdles and cross the line, participate in a lot of games, exploring a lot of paint, sand and clay. Yeah, and would be able to eat food with some assistance. Eventually, when a child has done, crossing the hurdle, and then you could have done those activities, you could make them do a lot of high jump, you could make them throw and catch balls, and the rice bag that I spoke about with both arms extended. You could do some play finger rhyme, and then you have, I'm sure there are a lot of nursery rhymes people do, and having a lot of actions would really help. And tearing paper and then pasting them when given an outline is also something that we could do. And again, making them thread a string and laces through medium-sized beads is what we could do. You could also use a lot of leaves, you can use flowers, you can use bottle caps. So we would eventually be talking about some of the kit, what are some of the materials that we should be using when we are promoting early learning opportunities at school and at home. We would be moving on to those sections as well. But for now, just focus on what are the activities that we should be doing when we're talking about physical skill development.
Hello, ma'am. I have a query. Shall I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah, ma'am. Like nowadays, the children are more active and they are super active, I can say. So they are using more fine motor skills, and as well as at the same time gross motor skills also the children are using too. So
right.
So at present, the children who are using fine motor skills less and gross motor skills more, like it is uh, equally equally shared to all the children. So, as per my view, so should child will go with the fine motor skills or the gross motor skills more, so that to equally balance their development.
So firstly, it can happen simultaneously. There is no need to, and there won't be able to have equal number of activities for both these skill development, right? You could always see to have a mix of both gross motor and fine motor skill development, and not just really focus that there should be, of course, there should be a balance, but you cannot just focus on having it an equal number of games. So try and bring in more fine motor if you're seeing that a child is able to do more gross motor, having in more activities, but these are simultaneous. We don't need to worry that there should be a balance as such, but you can always do these activities mixing any structured, unstructured gross motor, fine motor skill development.
It because as of now I observed, ma'am, if a child is doing more gross motor skills, they are considering as a super active kids, and they are into the disorder states. So some teachers are using to that words to the school children. So if children are using gross motor skills more, so they are not sitting at one place and concentrating on something. So even only children who are using a fine motor skills, they are considered as a good students. So gross motor skills, the children are using, they are super active children. They are not sitting at one desk. So it doesn't mean actually. So the both fine motor skills and gross motor skills are very much important to the children. So
Sure,
why do
of
the
course.
teacher judge like that? I don't know. I'm not understanding that.
Okay, we will, it's a very good question and I'll be taking this offline. I would request you to put it in the chat box, please, so that I'll be able to, read it properly, because I lost you somewhere in the middle of what you were saying. So just
Sure,
put it in the
ma'am.
chat box. I will read it and I will definitely try and answer to that.
Sure,
Okay?
ma'am. Thank you. And then by the end of the session also, you can give me
I
the
will, of course, of course. Let the time permit, and there are a couple of more sessions and
Sure,
okay, but
sure,
do,
ma'am.
do
Sure.
do put it in the chat box. All right, moving on to the other skill development. Like I stressed upon the importance of creative development and how it's different from cognitive, mainly having a lot of imagination and inventiveness, and art from an expression is what creative development would really mean. Like I said, having a lot of flexibility, having a lot of flexibility in terms of time, like giving a child time to finish, time to talk about the art the child has done, and play with a lot of words, sounds and rhymes is very important for creative development. And demonstrating interest in music and song. You would have children who would not want to participate in dance and music and song, but try and see what the child is more interested in, what are the other forms of art a child would be able to do. If a child is able to initiate expressions or action, if a child is able to enjoy some other physical activities and is trying different positions. So just if you're playing a song and if you're trying to make some action and making the child to imitate your action, also please have a focus on what are the different things that child is doing. So having an eye where we can observe different things a child is doing is very important for creative development. It cannot go guided. It cannot go in one track. You need to be a participant, like just like them, to focus on this particular development. And seeing if a child is able to play with different sounds and new words is, if you have different musical instruments in your classroom, in your center, making them explore different ways to play those instruments, and see if a child is able to pretending to be something. If a child is pretending to be his or her mother, if a child is pretending to be her teacher. So these are the things that you would see. Okay, child is being creative now and trying to observe a lot of things and pretending. And if you are doing role play and dramatic play, see if a child is participating, and then what are the things that they are really interested in. Drawing and constructing something from one's imagination is very important when we are talking about creative development. There should be a lot of scope for a child to put in more imagination, put in more creativity, and not just restrict them to what are the instructions being given by the system or the teacher. Okay, that's also very important for creative development. I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted by the chat messages. It's also very important to get the sounds and repetitive phrases, recognizing them, and using a lot of riddles and making the child to complete the riddle. That's also an important activity for creative development. Creation of new songs can also be done to help them be more creative, and different ways to solve a problem. Like if I talked about the rain example, what are the different ways that you could do? Okay, now we do not have an umbrella. What do we do now? And a child would be able to give another solutions to those problems. And if you're doing a story, then asking them, okay, if you were the character, what would you do in the situation? So exploring different ways to solve problems is again be very important. And having a lot of questions that what will happen if this happens, and then trying different options is also very important as creative development. Again, problem solving is something that we have spoken in the cognitive development as well, but exploring other ways to solve problem would be creative. So you would need creativity to solve a problem, and that's why it's important to promote and then build in more scope for creativity development. All right, so these were the major skill development areas that I spoke about. Quickly, just going back to all the skill development domains, we spoke about cognitive, we spoke about social emotional development, we spoke about language development, which is very important, and having the resource that is there in them talking should be made use of. We spoke about physical, and then lastly we spoke about the creative development. Okay, now when we are doing these activities with children, it's very important to measure, and it's very important to track the progress of children in these different skill domains. And that's why measuring early childhood development and what really matters in classrooms and center is very important. So why do we have to measure whether we are at home, whether we are interacting with a child, whether we are, how do we see that the child is able to be on track and is learning and not just academically, is to support learning and see if a child is ready for schools, if a child is able to understand what this activity really means for is very important when we are talking about measuring early childhood development, to mainly support them, to mainly see if they are ready now to begin formal learning, to also identify if they have any special needs, and to study mainly dual language learners to see if a child is needs special assistance in terms of language, in terms of their needs. It's very important to measure their development right from early years. Not to evaluate the child, but to evaluate your own program and your own monitoring trends. We need to measure early childhood development. So not to label the child here, not to also label the performance of the teacher, but to evaluate the kind of support, the kind of program the school provides, and the kind of plans and activities which are being done. So these are very important things to be taken care of when we are measuring early childhood development, not to label the child, not to make a mark, okay, a child is not able to do this or able to perform this, but to evaluate what kind of support and what kind of program your school has. And to make the school and to make the center, the state accountable for their learning. So these are the 4 important things to see when we are measuring early childhood development: to support their learning, to identify if they have any special needs, to promote and to evaluate our own program and not the child, and to make ourselves more accountable, to make the school accountable. All right. And one very important thing which people usually don't talk about and is quite underrated is observation. And that should be encouraged more and more when we are talking about dealing with babies, we're talking about dealing with young children, is to observe more. Why is it important? Because that makes us understand that what individual child can know and what they can do. And this can only be done by the teacher or any caregiver who are there, to be more vigilant and to be more observant of their actions and their interests. Observation would really also make you understand what individual child is interested in and how they can learn best. If they cannot learn through, one particular activity, what are the different activities that we could do to help them get interested in and to make them learn better? To support your planning and provision, it's very important to observe. If a particular plan that we have planned as a teacher is not working with a particular child, observation would really help us to support and make adjustments to our own plan, and to make use of the data which is there in the school and classrooms, and to match our own approaches with the strategies to children needs. So what a child would need and what are we providing them, to match and make an alignment both. It's very important to observe. Okay. Just giving you all another 30 seconds to observe this. All right, moving on. Some of the techniques that we could do to assess their learning and observe children is we could have a time sampling. We could just see if I've given an activity and within 10 minutes, I would like to see how many children are doing, who is the child who's not able to participate, and what is the kind of support that they would need. So that would really help. If you can just focus on one child and want to track his or her development, that also you can do. Just one day you can just take out your register and then see, okay, today this is this child that I would like to track, and or maybe a couple of children that you would want to track. That's also can be done to observe, and then eventually keep moving on to another set of children. Checklist is very common these days when it comes to observing young children. This is something that we've been encouraging the Anganwadi workers also in the ICDS government systems to help them understand and observe young children, where they would have a set of names for each children, and they would have those activities that they will be planning, and they would want to see if a child is able to do that particular activity. I will show a couple of samples, but checklist is something which is very common and very effective in terms of observing young children. Learning stories, try and understand a child from different perspective, and talking to parents, interviewing different caregivers that child is in contact with really helps in bringing in more techniques to assess young children, and documenting whatever you have observed really helps. These are some of the techniques that one could do when we are talking about measuring early childhood development and observing them. Very important thing, like I mentioned, is our checklist and also documenting what you are seeing. So portfolios are something which are heavily used in preschool centers, where a child's work is documented, and then a teacher is mainly seeing if there is any progress happening. So documentation and then maintaining a checklist are two major important techniques. Moving on. For any measurement of early child development, it's very important to have observation, like I mentioned, to document whatever you're observing, to interpret what you have documented, and then based on that, you can have your instructions planned. So it's a cycle. So 4 important things when we are talking about measuring what is important in your own classroom and context is to observe a lot, to document, make notes of what you're observing, interpret, try and make notes, make some analysis or based on what you've documented, and then only make your instructions. That would give you a clearer picture of what's happening in the classroom, and then you can again observe more and then go back to the cycle. This is very important, and that's how you'll get the accurate and authentic data about your classroom. Moving on. And when you have certain assessment instrument, I'm sure you all have some techniques that you are using to assess your children learning. One very important thing is that if there should be some system of support for yourself as teachers and for people who are working as staff in your school, there should be some system of support where you all are interacting a lot, you are learning a lot more about your and each other's classrooms. That should be there. There should be enough training for assessments and how to observe a child. I mean, that's also very important, and that needs a lot of skills. So there should be a system of support in place for teachers and staff. If you have any reporting system, please see if you all are thorough with that system. If you see there is any scope of improvement, if you're able to challenge that system, make adjustments, if a child is able to make sense of that system. So that's also very important. So complete system of support is very important. and if that system is very appropriate for assessing children with disabilities. That's also very important when you're selecting any assessment instruments, when you're collecting any data about your classroom, to see if all children are included and you are able to assess everyone. If not, we can always make changes. I mean, every innovation, every creativity can start from early years itself, and it does not have to be, a hard and fast rule. So if you have any system which is not working, if you have any method which is not working, right from early years, we can start innovating and make some changes, considering everyone in the classroom. Okay, moving on to the list of materials that I spoke about, like what are the things that we could include in the preschool education kit that should be there when we are talking about early childhood development, and we are catering to young children, which are safe, which are important for their holistic child development, early learning. So mainly at Ambedkar University, we helped the Ministry of Women and Child Development prepare this document, where we sort of guided them what are the different materials that we could make and should be there in all centers, which should pass the child safety guidelines. And the plain learning materials would be categorized in 3 major components. Number 1, what are the materials that can be procured from the market? What are the materials that can be prepared by the teacher when you are having your training or whenever you have any spare time on your own? How can you prepare some materials? And what are some of the locally available low cost material in the environment? This is again a very important document which could give you an idea of what are the materials which should be there to provide early learning in your context. So talking about different things that could be procured from market, what we can make, what we should make, and what locally available low cost things are there. Important thing to be procured in the market is to see if we have enough building block sets which have basic shapes that can vary in color. Do we have enough colorful beads and wires? Again, if there are things which are not available in the market, we can always make these. But the idea is to have these materials. The idea is to have enough equipments and toys for children to explore and play with. Do we have enough modeling materials? Do we have clay? Can we make some dough? Do we have a lacing board? Can we make a lacing board? Just having a cardboard and then having it like this? Can we make some board for them? Having balls of varying sizes also are very important to see them identify what is big and small, to also play with different sizes balls. That's also quite important. Making simple puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, some color puzzles, body parts puzzle, and shape puzzles. Again, these are the guidelines which are there in the government website, and this has been passed. So if you have in your center, you should be having these materials because these are prescribed by everyone. Magnifying glass is also very important when we are talking about promoting skill development in your for a child, and magnet of varying strength would be very helpful. I'm sure you all have dominoes and then dot cards. Alphabet and number cards could be used for any language or mother language and any language that you are using in your classroom. Having a lot of picture cards and flashcards should be there. Lots of storybooks, and when you're starting with picture books, you can just have just pictures or just have 1 or 2 text line. Remember, if you're using picture, the more focus should be on the picture. And if you have storybooks, that should be mainly used by the teacher who is narrating the story. And having some musical instrument like duffly, a small drum can be really helpful. Having some soft toys and some set for dramatic play like kitchen set, doctor set, having plastic and not toxic fruits and vegetables, having a plastic balance scale, you can always make a balance scale, having measuring cups of varying sizes, that can be very helpful. Having variety of papers, you can have newsprint, you can have glazed paper, you can have recycled paper, having a lot of crayons, different types of colors, pencils, chalk, of course, other stationery items. So these are the things that you can be procured from the market, but the idea is that they should be there with a child to do some activities. And you can also make your own small kit having these activities, materials. What are the materials that the teacher can prepare during the training and on their own? You can always prepare soft cloth ball. Like I said, you can just have a bag of rice and then just stitch it and make it into a ball. You can have counters. You can use bottle caps. You can use leaves. You can use to make counters. You can have pattern completion cards. You can make dominoes. You can have self-corrective puzzles, and you can have puppets as well. I'm sure there are a lot of trainings to make puppets, but different types of puppets should be made. You can also make maze, and some of the locally and no-cost materials which are there in the environment is please make use of your old and clean cloth, and you can make puppets out of it. You can make dolls, and make use of all the bottle caps. Please make use of the old tire which are there, and the plastic bottles, some of the wooden toys which are there. Coconut shells are something that we usually use in our centers, and some used papers. So just be more resourceful, and then make use of the available materials which are there in the environment. So this was the overall picture of what is early childhood development. How can we support learning in early childhood development? What are the things that we could do? What are the different skill development areas? Why is it important? And this is just like for today. Based on your suggestions and based on the question that you have, I'll be talking about those things in the day 2, and mainly talking about what are the distance learning approaches that we could do in this time, and how can we make use of play-based method in these times. So this was just to give you an overall picture of early childhood development, and then day 2 we could talk about more specific to COVID-19 and how is it impacting young children. All right, thank you so much. I hope this was useful and you got a clearer picture of ECD. And I think we have some time to take on some questions, but like I said, please put it in the chat box. I'll be very happy to read all your questions and put answer in the day 2 session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanu. The session was extremely informative. I hope everyone enjoyed being a part of this session. Like Sanu said, please go ahead and place your questions into the chat box. As Sanu mentioned, she would definitely try and get back to each and every question. The questions would be addressed in the session that Sanu would be conducting next Saturday. Tomorrow's session would be covered by Rosie House. And Sanu will be conducting the session again the next Saturday. The Sunday again would be Rosie House. So please do not forget to park your questions, and I'm sure we'll get to them. Another thing, could you, if you haven't already provided your name and your school name and your city, could you please provide it again in the chat box? That will be really, really helpful. Sanu, is there anything else that you would like me to mention? Hello, Sanu?
Yeah, I'm here. I think I'm good. I'm just looking at the questions that if the participants might have.
Okay.
If not, I can see a lot of thank yous, which is thank you so much.
Yeah. The session was extremely informative, Sanu, so I'm sure all the thank yous.
Thank you for providing this opportunity. And,
it's been a pleasure.
I'm looking forward to the next session. And
thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for taking out time.
It was very interesting, informative, and legend.
Thank you so much.
Hey, another thing, if you are not already a part of the Facebook page of Buddha Academy, please do so. The reason I mentioned this is because the recording of today's session would be placed over there.
Okay.
That way you can access it. Because there was a lot of information that was shared. I understand it takes a little while to assimilate everything, so you can always go back and listen to the audio or the session again, and accumulate the information once again.
All right. Yeah.
And
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
instead of giving the questions to the chat box, ma'am, can I WhatsApp the question, ma'am, so that
Yeah, sure. I will forward it to Sanu. If you want to
Yeah.
do that, you can definitely do it.
yeah, I'll WhatsApp that question, ma'am.
Yes,
that will be
please,
better.
please do so. Please.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Sanu.
much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.